How's it going? So today, I wanted to talk about Aum Shinrikyo. This is personally one of my favorites to learn about. There's so much to cover, and in such a short time, I'm just going to hit the most important parts of this group. So in March 20th, 1995, Tokyo was hit with a sarin gas attack that left 13 dead and a little over 6,000 people injured of various injuries. Some fine within a few weeks, others still heavily affected today. Some people have never recovered. And it is the single worst domestic terrorist attack in Japan's history, ever. So far, no one has ever done worse. And it was all because of a group known as Aum Shinrikyo. And their founder, Shoko Asahara, led this group to a very dark path, coming from just a weird beginning. So Shoko Asahara was born Chizuo Matsumoto in the Kumamoto prefecture of Japan. He was born March 2nd, 1955. And as a mostly blind kid, he was sent to a blind school where he established himself as a bully and con man. Went to medical school, well, failed from getting into medical school, rather. He tried to get in. So he went the path of homeopathy. He would do acupuncture, Reiki, Chinese herbal medicine, whatever, but he was selling fake products and, forging things. So was arrested, got out, went on a spiritual journey around Asia. In doing so, learned a lot about Hinduism, Buddhism, some Christianity, mainly just everything to say he's the most enlightened individual possible. And when he got back to Japan, he said he had reached enlightenment, which is basically saying he's Buddha. And in doing so, gained a following. He said he could levitate, would prove it to people. It was just a trick that magicians use today. Reached a lot of his early followers by going through, your basic nerd stuff. He was reaching those introverted, incel dudes that just needed something else, a group to belong to. So he hit manga, anime, sci-fi, fantasy, oh, hey, come check out these hot chicks. Stuff like that, just a bunch of nerd stuff, things I would be heavily attracted to, but I wouldn't join this group for that because I got other stuff to do. But it worked, and he gained massive following quickly, but then he started reaching out, and reaching out, he kept hitting all these notes to get across the board everyone he could, and not your sad, lonely, typical people of other cults, but the top students of Japan would leave college to be with him. He had biologists, chemists, medical doctors, lawyers, judges, military officers, other politicians, computer technicians, top leading technology experts. He had everybody across the board join his cult, and they all were brainwashed by him. He would pump hallucinogenics into their system to keep them loyal to him, and obviously on that level and in doing rituals and chants and all this stuff, it just warped their mind to believe he truly was the Messiah, which is what he called himself, that and the Buddha. So, and given his image of long hair, flowing beard, robes, it made sense, especially if you're super hyped up on LSD and all these other things. So, yeah. So he establishes that. But the original group was known as Aum Shinrikyo Kai, which then quickly became Aum Shinrikyo as he started gaining more followers rather than just the otaku kids. And from there, they became an established religion in Japan, which in Japanese culture and due to their bureaucracy, they are not allowed to interfere with religious practices, and they take that very, very, very seriously. Which in this case was detrimental because they were doing terrible things. They were into manufacturing drugs, manufacturing weapons, manufacturing nerve agents, manufacturing biochemical agents. They were dealing with the Yakuza, dealing with former Soviet doctors and politicians. Across the board, they were doing everything. They literally had their hand in a many, 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 many cookie jars. and they carried out multiple attacks in Japan. It wasn't their first sarin gas attack. They were doing other attacks on smaller scales just to see what would be the most effective. For his followers, Shoko Asahara was a violent man. Would beat them, put them into tiny little trunks, and for months, put them in barrels, electroshock, drugging them, obviously. And I mean, like going beyond that, just forms of punishment that were far extreme. And he would sell his bathwater for them to drink, his blood to drink. He would have his hair, I believe, to eat or at least collect or whatever. He was also he had these special helmets, but like weird hats that stimulated the mind, which basically just shocked these people. But it was to emulate the brainwaves of Shoko Asahara because he was so smart. Got to be like him. So it was literally all just a brainwashing technique to get them to be miniature Shoko Asaharas. And that is a pun because Shoko Asahara was a very fat man. He was very large. But this all led to his ideals of the doomsday. This is a doomsday cult. And in this doomsday plan, it was the U.S. will attack Japan and incite World War III. If the U.S. doesn't do this, that's fine. If it does, and if the doomsday doesn't come on the day that we said, that's fine too. Shoko Asahara had a plan for that. We'll just attack Japan and blame it on the U.S., which also kind of got them in with Russia because that sounds like a good plan to them. So that's what they did. And again, 1995, five individuals got on the trains of Japan, and Japan's trains run perfectly. Even to today, they are absolutely immaculately perfect on time. It is scary good. If you've ever been on a train in like New York or whatever, our systems are pure garbage. Theirs always run, which was almost detrimental, and that was the entire plan, was they run so perfectly, it can't fail. The thing was, like I said, their plan was plastic bags filled with sarin liquid or whatever you want to call it, wrapped in newspapers. They had sharpened umbrellas, and it would be, we're going to drop them on the ground, poke them, run out of the train. That was their master plan. It is a very dumb plan, but it still worked. The thing was, it wasn't the best delivery system, so most of the gas couldn't actually get out because it would kind of like the bags themselves would cinch in, so it would only release a little bit. One bag was actually kicked out of the train by an affected person. Even a couple of the people popping the bags, part of the Aum Shinrikyo, were affected. One actually was sent to the hospital because of it. And again, this could have been so much worse because the immaculate timing of Japanese trains, and they did not stop. It took a while for people to actually stop the trains, which still caused problems because people were still, they're so ingrained in their culture of efficiency and their jobs that people that were affected, it took days to realize how many people were affected by sarin gas because thousands of these people were going to work bleeding from their throats, bad. These people were terribly sick, still at work, trying to get, even the people laying on the ground, trying to get to work. That is how ingrained it is in their minds and culture that they have to be efficiently working at all times. So luckily they did stop the trains, which caused, which helped mitigate massive damage of lives. And luckily, a couple years ago, Shoko Asahara and 5 or 6 of his followers were put to death. 2 more were caught later on, and these are the people that were absolutely part of this plan, which there were probably way more, but these were the ones specifically named. 2 of them were on the run, one for 17 years. Finally caught, I believe, in 2012, and then the other in 2014, and they both are serving life sentences, but Shoko Asahara and the original people caught with him immediately put on death row, and a couple years ago they were hung. Either way, And that's not the end of Aum Shinrikyo. They do still exist. They changed their name to Aleph, and it is run by a original member of Aum Shinrikyo. Another member broke off and started another group, so they're still around, and it's still a controversial issue in Japan if they should exist. Many people say that even just Japan's interference with Aum Shinrikyo was against the Constitution. So it's a touchy subject, but that is the gist of it, and I hope that was educational. I've enjoyed looking into this even more. There's so much to talk about with Aum Shinrikyo. I mean, it's not even that long of a group. It was like 10, 20 years, and I mean, this is like books of stuff to cover. So I implore anyone just curious of this to go out and learn as much about Aum Shinrikyo as possible. There's so much more. It is ridiculous. But until then, I've enjoyed this class, and I've enjoyed learning with everyone. And thank you, Professor, for giving us a very educational class and something truly, truly interesting that I think no matter where you go in life, we're all going to remember a lot of what we learned in this class. So, signing off. Have a great time. Enjoy the rest of the year, guys.